Should you get an old GTX 760? Can it even play modern games? Well, let's answer that today, shall we? Oh, hey, I'm TechDweeb. How you doing? Thanks for clicking on the video today. So, as you can tell by the title of the video, we're looking at a GTX 760. This is the Asus DirectQ 2 model, which I got from a little deal I made. A friend of mine needed a new GPU because this one was super noisy. Something up with the fans. I sold him an old GTX 1050 at a discount because he gave me his old GPU, and then I fixed it by replacing the fans, which I ordered from AliExpress. I made a video about that, it's linked in the description below. It was annoyingly loud before. It sounded like a broken hard drive grinding away. Now it's whisper quiet. And look at those heat pipes. It looks like a metal octopus is stuck under there. It's a nice looking GPU. It's all black and gold on the back. I'm not a fan of the red on the shroud, but I might try to spray paint it to stazz it up. Did you know you could spray paint your GPUs to change their color? Oh yeah, you can. I made a video about that too. Link in the description below. But I'm just happy that this GTX 760 could get a second life with a cheap quick fix. That's if it could play games, of course. I've been intending to make a video on this GPU for a while. I think it's more relevant than ever now, actually. With the GPU prices finally starting to come down, the second-hand market is experiencing a boom of old, used GPUs now that many people are finally able to snag the new GPUs that they've been waiting for. I see GPUs like this popping up all the time on my local market for $50 or less, and even on eBay, which is typically more expensive than local markets, you can get these for like 50 or 60 bucks if you keep your eye out for deals. Should we do a cat break? Yeah, let's do a cat break. Cat break! I had someone say on my last video that they wanted to see my cat. Well, here she is. This is Hermione. She's a Turkish Angora purebred, and she's 27 years old. She likes to hang out on the windowsill in my dungeon of solitude in my mom's basement, and she loves to watch me play video games and cuddle at bedtime. She's my second best friend, after my mom of course, and her favorite GPU is the GT 710, which I don't approve of obviously, but I can't force her to change her mind, so we'll just have to agree to disagree on that. Oh, and she's definitely real and alive. Okay, back to the video. The GTX 760 was a great card back when it was released in 2013, and has held its performance for a long time. It's a 60 class GPU, so it's not quite entry level, maybe a step above entry level, and the 60 class of GPUs has always been a good bang for the buck in terms of value and longevity. However, it's now finally starting to show its age. It doesn't fully support DirectX 12, only up to feature set 11, I think, so many games that require DirectX 12 won't work. And some games will require the latest drivers, which this GPU doesn't have access to. The 700 series can be confusing because some of the cards like this one are from the Kepler architecture, and some are from the Maxwell architecture like the GTX 750 Ti. Nvidia stopped releasing updated drivers for its Kepler architecture, and this GTX 760 is a Kepler card. So yeah, you can't download the latest game-ready drivers for this GPU. The most recent drivers that work on this GPU are from January of 2022, so they're not that old, but they'll become more and more outdated as time goes on, which is a big shame, you know? I hate when that happens. These GPUs can still perform quite well in many modern games, but they're being made obsolete by the lack of driver updates. I guess it needs to happen eventually. This card came out in 2013 after all, and we can't expect Nvidia to keep spending money testing and validating its new drivers for all its older products. But it's still a shame when good hardware can't keep up because of software issues. That said, just because Nvidia isn't releasing drivers for this GPU, that doesn't mean that it can't play modern games. Most games that work with this GPU won't require the latest updated GPU drivers, and this will work fine. I'm honestly not sure what to expect here. I haven't really put this GPU through any kind of extended testing yet. I'm not even sure what games will even run on this, let alone which ones will perform well. This will be a surprise for both of us, I think. We're running this in my PC with a Ryzen 5800X, a 32GB of 3600 MHz RAM. Full specs are listed in the description below. You don't need a CPU like this to get the performance we'll see today. You get the same results running an old 3rd Gen i5 or something equivalent. But this will let our GTX 760 show its true colors without a hint of CPU bottleneck. So, without further delay, let's play some games. Or let's not. Yeah, first the bad news. Let's get this out of the way. Some games won't work at all. This game does support DirectX 12, but not the full feature set, as far as I understand it. So there will be a few games that just won't work. Assassin's Creed Valhalla didn't work, God of War didn't work, Resident Evil Village wouldn't start for me, although I saw other people got this one working. Something about downgrading the driver, so, you know, maybe you could get it working. But these were the games that I tested that straight up didn't work for me out of the gate. I'm sure there are others, and as time goes on, this list of unsupported games will grow. But let's evaluate things as they are now. What does run on this GTX 760? Well, most stuff runs actually. Starting off with my favorite benchmark game, Shadow the Tomb Raider, running on the low settings at 1080p with 75% resolution scale, which is 900p essentially. We're gonna average 34 FPS at the end of my benchmark run, which is a promising start. You know, this game looks great and it's relatively new, so the fact that we can play this at 900p and have it look good and playable, that's really nice to see. Here's Valheim, which is new to my test suite. I've been playing this with my cousins and it's a really fun game. I don't usually get in on these early access survival games, but this one's a Viking game. And those who know me well know that I love me some Vikings. So we gave it a try and we loved it. This one's actually running at 1440p with low settings, and we averaged 43 FPS by the end of this run. If you run this at 1080p or 900p, you can increase those settings to get the game looking better. This game looks really good on high settings, but it could be very demanding. So as usual, a middle of the road approach would probably be best on older cars like this GTX 760. Doom runs well, 1080p at 75% scale, so 900p essentially, and medium settings, I average 50 FPS. This is a first-person shooter game, a very action-heavy game, so I'll always prefer higher FPS. If you have a 75 or 100 Hz monitor, I'd personally lower the settings right now so that it ran with the FPS as high as possible. I just think the game running very smoothly and having those twitch reflexes not hindered by the game's performance is much more fun than having nice-looking visuals in games like this. In some games I prefer the visuals, and in some I prefer the performance, and Doom is definitely one of those games where the performance comes first for me. Cry Primal is running at 1080p with the normal preset, which is medium, and I average 57 FPS. This is an older Far Cry game. I think this is in the Far Cry 4 engine, but it's my favorite Far Cry game so far. I just love cavemen. Deep down, I'm a caveman at heart. I haven't tried Far Cry 6 yet. Too many games on my to-play but the Far Cry series has always been good for GPU testing because, you know, they look great. They're also well optimized, so they usually run great. And they have lots of graphical options to tweak. And they're big open world games with lots of trees and nature and landscape, and they're just beautiful. So it's always tempting to try to get the games looking great by raising the settings, but you don't want to go too far down that road because it's a first-person shooter and you need higher FPS to keep it enjoyable. The slightly older Far Cry games like 3 and 4 and Primal run much better on these older cards, as you can see. And they look great, and they play great, as you can see. Here's good old GTA 5, our standard candle. 1080p, normal settings, which are the low settings in this game. I got 92 FPS by the end of this run. I actually was surprised at the performance from the 760. I'd probably increase the settings to aim for 60 FPS and get the game looking as good as it could. Minecraft works. That's it. I just wanted to tell you, the Windows 10 version of Minecraft runs fine. Default settings, I got 94 FPS average. So yeah, this is a good GPU you can find pretty darn cheap. That'll work well for a kid's PC or whatever. You know, all the kiddos love Minecraft, right? And Fortnite. Kids love Fortnite. Yeah, can you play Fortnite on a GTX 760? Yeah, you can. No problems at all. I ran at 1080p with medium settings and epic view distance, and I averaged 58 FPS. Totally playable, and you can get much higher frame rates if you lowered the settings down to low or enabled performance mode. I like the way this game looks, so I don't usually go very low in the settings, but you have some wiggle room here. Horizon Zero Dawn was very playable at 1080p if you turned on Performance FSR, which gives us a big performance boost. The visuals do suffer. With Performance FSR, you're basically running the game at 720p, but while the upscaling doesn't make it look anywhere near 1080p native, it does look much better than 720p, so it's still worthwhile. I had this on the low preset, I got 41 FPS average. Days Gone ran fine too, 1080p with 70% scale, so, 900p-ish. With a low-medium settings mix, I got an average of 51 FPS. That's not bad at all. These PlayStation ports by Santa Monica Studio are really well done. They run great, and they have all the settings you need to adjust the performance and the visuals. They're all really good games too. I haven't beat this game, but I'm having a great time going through it.
Bakery camp. Bastards have been ambushing all the supply runs around here, haven't you? Down you go!
Borderlands 3 ran really good. I'm playing this at 1080p with 75% scale with mostly low settings, and I averaged 52 FPS. This is a new game I'm trying out. It came with my monthly Humble Bundle subscription. I've always loved the Borderlands series. I played the junk out of 1 and 2 on the Xbox 360, and then I replayed 2 twice on the PC. This version feels like a good evolution. The graphics are a bit better, but the gunplay feels much more satisfying. The actual shooting and the trajectory of the bullets feel like a whole different game. It feels great. And there are lots of little improvements to the way the game does stats and quests and all that stuff under the hood. I wasn't sure if I'd be into another Borderlands after playing so much of the other ones, but this feels like a good evolution. It feels like the Borderlands that I've always wanted. I'm definitely gonna play more of this in the next little while, although I just got Elden Ring, so that might be a distraction, and a bunch of other new games. Oh god, so many games, so little time.
Spy.
But can it run Crysis? Well, here's Crysis Remastered, which is actually pretty demanding compared to the original. And I'm running at 1080p with low settings, and I got a very enjoyable 70 FPS average. The original version of this game looked amazing, and this remaster updates it to look amazing today. I'm really impressed with how well this runs, considering how good it looks. Even my RTX 3080 can't run this game with very high FPS when you crank the settings to maximum. The fact that our old cheap GTX 760 can play this game at 1080p and have it looking this good, oh, that's pretty darn cool if you ask me.
Suit checks out. You're back online. Still no word from Aztec. Nomad. Rendezvous with Jester and head.
Cyberpunk 2077. This game is super demanding, as you probably know. It really doesn't run well on anything, even after the latest patch. It's better, but it's not brilliant by any means. To get this running, we have to run it at 900p low settings with balanced FSR to give us a bit of a boost. The game looks, meh. It's okay for the most part. It's not amazing, but it's Cyberpunk, and the fact that you can play it on this old GTX 760 is actually pretty cool. We only average 33 FPS, but this market area of the game is pretty demanding, so this should be about as low as it goes. I would play like this if I had no other way. It's doable. I went into this video without very high expectations. I was expecting many more games not to run. Only 3 of the games I tested didn't run properly, but most actually ran fine. I mean, if Cyberpunk plays on a GPU, then you know it's going to be good enough to play many modern games. And pretty much any older game will run great on it. Most of the games I tested today came out many years after this card was released. The fact that most of them were playable and some of them ran really well, that shows you that old GPUs with outdated drivers aren't as useless as they sound. Should you get an old 700 series Kepler GPU? Well, it depends on what you want to play, I guess. If you're going to be bummed out that God of War or whatever other new game doesn't launch, then you'll need something with full DirectX 12 support. But if you have a huge backlog of older games, or only plan to play newer games that support older GPUs like Fortnite or whatever, or if you're willing to gamble on what will run and be pleasantly surprised when games like Cyberpunk are playable, then I say cards like this GTX 760 can give you a lot of gaming fun for the low cost of entry. So these GPUs can be found very cheap on the used market. So worst case scenario is you buy one and some game or other that you want to play doesn't work, and at least you're not out hundreds of dollars. And you might find that the vast majority of the stuff you want to play runs fine. And in these weird times with GPU prices and availability all over the place, little gems like this are the silver lining.
Back online. More than fine cover.
And that brings us to the end. Please let me know in the comments below. What do you think of the GTX 760? Do you think it's worth it today? Or not? And more importantly, did you have this card? Or do you still have it? Or something similar? Any of you rocking an older GPU that's still going strong? Give your GPU a shout out in the comments below. And while you're down there, give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Or a thumbs down if you didn't like it for some reason. Subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.